What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Howard Bender. Welcome into the Alarm Fantasy Football Show. Schedule release day here, Howard. Kind of an important day.
You don't look like Coop.
I'm definitely not Andrew Cooper. That is true. I think this is my first appearance of 2025 on the Alarm Fantasy Football Show. Many more to come. It's crazy to think that football season has already been underway for quite a while. You know, obviously we had all of our off-season content leading into the NFL draft. The NFL draft happens. Best ball season's been going on for a while, and now really starting to pick up steam. We're going to talk a little FastDraft Origins here a little bit later on in the show because Centerville schedule release day, Howard, and we kind of have an idea of bye weeks, matchups to target, early season potential matchups to target. So it's kind of an important day here in the NFL and in the fantasy alarm family industry here.
Oh, without a doubt. And, it's kind of funny because, obviously schedule release. And by the way, thank you everybody for tuning in here. I know we're going a little bit earlier than what we normally do on a Wednesday, but, with no Andrew Cooper, Johnny and I, we got other responsibilities. So we got to jump in on this right now. But again, what I love about the schedule release, it's not the leaks that continuously happen. And we'll talk about a bunch of the games and everything like that are already kind of laid out, but it's about the bye weeks because I've done a bunch of best ball drafts right now. I've drafted on FastDraft. I've done Flex 4 drafts. I've done Origins drafts. And the key here is the bye weeks, because now the question is, now that we're not flying blind, and if you're doing a best ball game, well, then, you want to make sure that you have quarterbacks at different bye weeks, that you're running backs at different bye weeks, that you're always going to be able to get something in there. I've done a number of drafts that I'm sure already, like I'm going to take a look at them and I'm going to look at the schedule once it comes out later on tonight. I'm going to be like, well, damn, this team's dead because I have 3 QBs on the same bye week. So
that's the wild thing to me when it comes to these best ball contests, and the number of people that have already maxed out, a lot of these contests that have already filled. And you don't, like you said, you could have teams now that have all your running backs have the same bye, or all your quarterbacks, because we have 2 to 3 bye-mageddons, right? Every single season, where all the big players and all the big name teams are on a bye week at the same time. And now you have to go ahead and deal with your roster management there.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? And the thing about it is that if you're talking about best ball, there is no roster management. This is your team. This is it. If you've maxed out on your drafts already, then, best of luck to you and, see what happens there. But if you're just, you've done a couple of drafts, just get your feet wet, dive into the ADP and start looking at things, well, then great. Then you're just steadily preparing yourself as you're moving forward. But now, once the schedule comes out tonight, then I think it's like, then we can go head first into drafts. I know it's only May. It's only mid-May at this point. So there's plenty of time, but, ADP values, right? Sneaky bargain picks that you could make, you're avoiding a lot of the hype, like all of a sudden a player goes to a new team or something like that. And everybody starts, jumping in on them. Like, for example, since we're going to be talking a bunch of rookies today, I'll just give you like a perfect example. Jaden Higgins from the Houston Texans. This guy is getting so much buzz right now. Like, I get it. Tank Dell banged up, not likely to get hurt. Christian Kirk always hurt. So you're looking for somebody who's going to be opposite Nico Collins. But you know what? Jaden Higgins sort of plays that Nico Collins type game. So, if you're looking at him, where does he fit in this offense? Is it, he's definitely going to be behind Nico Collins? Is Christian Kirk just going to work out of the slot the entire time? So, people who are bumping Jaden Higgins up, and you start seeing him going higher and higher and higher in rookie drafts even. It gets a little crazy here. So I think that, at this point in time right now, with the schedule coming out and everything, we're going to be able to sort of plot our course of drafting, a little bit better.
Well, so like I said, we have some of the schedule leaks. We had the international schedule released yesterday. I'm going to pull up a graphic that Yahoo made for us here. This is the strength of schedule for the 2025 season based off winning percentage of last year's teams. The Giants have the hardest strength of schedule for the upcoming 2025 season. The 49ers have the easiest schedule based on win-loss record of last season. Thoughts sort of again on the early schedule leaks, and then anything kind of stick out to you, because the 49ers, they just dealt with a bunch of injuries last year. They weren't a bad football team, and now you're telling me that they have the easiest potential schedule in football. There's a lot of fantasy goodness on that 49ers team that you might be looking to take advantage of.
There really is. I'm actually in the middle of a slow draft right now for a charity league, and I had the 7th overall pick, and I grabbed Ashton Genty with my first pick, and I was like, all right, let me see what wide receivers come to me in round 2, and I was like, yeah, I'm looking at guys like Garrett Wilson and T. Higgins and the usual suspects. And then I look over at the running backs and I'm like, Christian McCaffrey, still available. Yeah. Mid-second round. I get it. There's obvious risk that goes that gets involved there, but why? I'm sorry. Why am I not looking at Christian McCaffrey, in the second round, just from that upside play alone? So yeah, I agree with you. Listen, I think it's very interesting when you talk about certain teams with really weak schedules. I don't care if the Saints, the Patriots, the Titans, or the Panthers have, such a weak schedule. What happened there? Where's your graphic?
There we go. We're good. We're good.
Phew.
Click the button. Click the button wrong.
Woof. But yeah, when I'm looking at like the San Francisco 49ers with technically the easiest schedule on the board, that is that I'm not, we usually say that's a stat waiting to be corrected. That's going to be something that I think is going to be very interesting when you're looking at guys like Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall, as well as obviously McCaffrey and Brock Purdy. So very interesting. I like my Jets down there below as well. I think they need as much help as they can possibly get.
Yeah, I obviously, being a Patriots fan, I took a look at their schedule. There, I think there's legitimate chance they start 8-0. No homerisms, just looking at who they're
right. No homerisms. I was like,
the first 6 games are at home. They got an easy schedule. They got an early bye. They're gonna come out firing strong. I think. What I'm gonna try to do here, without blowing up this graphic quickly, is switch to the international schedule. So bear with me for a moment. Let's see if I can pull this up smoothly.
Well, you pull that up, and I'll just kind of rant a little bit about it. First and foremost, if you caught me on the fantasy alarm,
right there, quickly.
If you caught me on the fantasy alarm show on Sirius XM on Tuesday night, you've heard my rant. I think 7 international games is beyond egregious. Beyond egregious. I hate it. And it's for a multitude of things. Yes. Does football now start for me 7 weeks out of the season at like 6:30 in the morning, my time? Actually, when I moved to Alaska, 5:30 in the morning, my time, on 7 different Sundays. That's problematic in its own right there. I'm not into that. Second of all, you're taking money out of teams' pockets. The only people who are benefiting from the international schedule right now are Roger Goodell and his little cronies in the NFL office and the team owners, right? Because they're getting a share of what happens with their team that goes, across the pond, right? The Minnesota Vikings owner will get his compensation for a Vikings game there. Jersey sales over in Europe, everything like that. It's all going to team owners, and it's all going to the NFL front office. None of this is being trickled down. And you're talking about teams that are losing home games. You're talking about stadium employees that are now suddenly off for a Sunday. And I mean, to me, I get what you want to do. I get that, we want this. See, back in the day, John, there was you might have seen the remake of the movie Rollerball.
Sure.
Right? Which, the remake was atrocious. It was terrible. It was a nightmare. The original, which was James Caan and John Houseman, that was an amazing movie. But basically what it focused on was the sensationalism that develops from an international game. And all it is the owners making the money, and it's all at the expense of the safety of the players.
Sure.
And that's something that, you have to kind of weave through. So seeing 7 games here on the schedule, I think it is insanely egregious. So that's my stance on there. Now, as far as the games themselves go, Chiefs Chargers, I think that's going to be a great game, right? I definitely do. I think Vikings Steelers and Vikings Browns is going to be atrocious because the Steelers and the Browns are 2 of the absolute worst teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Neither team has a quarterback. So I don't know what we're doing there. And so that's problematic. Broncos Jets, that'll be great. Rams Jags, fine. Falcons Colts, I don't know so much there.
Depends on the quarterbacks are, right?
And Commanders and Dolphins in Madrid, I mean, that's fine if you're, rah-rah about the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, but if Tua is not healthy for that game, well, we've seen it before. Once Tua is out of the picture, the Miami Dolphins just fall to crap.
I've always said it makes no sense to have a playoff contending team with the backup caliber quarterbacks that the Dolphins have had over the last couple of seasons, and unable to basically run an offense. You have all that talent there. Is it the Chiefs? Did they announce the Chiefs are the ones facing the Chargers there to kick off that Friday? This graphic says TBD. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. It's Chiefs. It's Chiefs Chargers.
Okay. Oh, that's a good one. I do like that one. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for the Steelers, maybe it makes that Vikings matchup just appealing from like the Rodgers sense.
I mean, yeah, if you're into the Pat McAfee show and you like doing all that kind of crap.
I mean, still people like to watch Rodgers succeed or fail, right? People
did you hear what he said the other day? Did you hear one of the reasons behind why he hasn't signed? He said because it's less pressure on him and less of a media circus that he's just linked to the Steelers right now. And will he sign? And when will he sign? That's easier for him than to sign right now and then have to explain why he's not at OTAs, why he's not at June mini camp, why he's not doing any of the team activities or anything like that. Obviously, everybody railed him for being in Egypt for, instead of Jets camp for 2 weeks. And I'm like, I mean, to me, that's one of the worst things. If you're not going to be in camp for the important stuff, and yes, everything is important. Continuity with the team, getting the team to trust you, getting your receiving weapons and you on the same page. Rodgers gets so frustrated when their passing attack isn't working. And he's like, oh, I want you to go this way and that way. It's like that scene in The Replacements where the quarterback that crosses the picket line, where he starts yelling at the deaf tight end, being like, "You need to go there, you need to go there, you need to go there," right? Like that's Aaron Rodgers, as a crybaby.
Yeah, he was even doing that with Devontae Adams last year too, a guy that he was supposed to be in sync with, right? They were just out of sync, because they didn't have all the reps in that particular offense ready to go. So, that's your international schedule, Howard. Like I said, we've had some leaked regular season matchups already put out there. Thanksgiving, we have Chiefs Cowboys, which now should be kind of a marquee matchup. I guess we'll see what version of Dallas shows up here. I mean, we're obviously excited about the prospects of the Cowboys offense with Pickens and Lamb and Dak Prescott and whatnot. The Chiefs obviously is still a marquee name. Do we think that there's so something else with these notable matchups that you're looking at?
All right. So the games that I've heard that have been leaked so far, just to go in order here: Monday Night Football, Eagles Packers on November the 10th. And I think that's a perfectly fine game. I don't know why that one in particular. There doesn't seem to be any kind of like real revenge game narrative or big marquee thing, especially if you're concerned about Jordan Love and what happens with him and that receiving core that's now going to be led by Matthew Golden or Jaden Reed. I don't even know. So that's one game. And listen, I mean, that'll have some good implications. One of the things that I said about the Eagles right now is I get it. Vic Fangio is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, right? He's one of the best. He's the architect behind that Eagles defense last year. But what did they do in the offseason? They completely dismantled that defense. They got rid of a lot of veterans. Then they came back in the draft and they used first 5 draft picks on defensive players. Then they went to an offensive lineman. Then they went back to defense. Then they went back to an offensive lineman. Then they went back to the defense. So now all of a sudden you've rebuilt this defense. And I get that Fangio knows how to scheme, but are these players really up to snuff? And I'm wondering, do the Eagles become a little less reliant on, well, in the second half, we're just going to give the ball to Barkley and let him run out the clock for us each and every time? Do they start passing a little bit more? Like, I think Eagles, Eagles Cowboys first game of the season, which was also leaked. I think that's actually going to become a great test for this Eagles defense right from the word go, because you do have Dak Prescott with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and Jake Ferguson, and you can mix in, Kevontae Turpin or Jalen Tolbert or whoever it is, but you're suddenly going to have a much more detailed passing attack, and that's going to put the Eagles defense to a test. So we'll see what happens there. I think the Packers kind of flowed into that same, MO as the Cowboys, looking at the fact that they are probably going to be much more reliant on the pass as opposed to just leaning on Josh Jacobs. So I think that's an interesting game. Chiefs Cowboys Thanksgiving Day, whatever. I'm just going to take the Chiefs and the points.
Sure.
Because some idiot's going to favor the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and just ask Jim Bowden.
Get off to like another slow start, or like start where they don't play well, but they're covering the spread all the time.
Meanwhile, the Cowboys will start off like 4-1, and everybody think that Dallas is going to the Super Bowl again, and then they'll crap
with that Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders backfield that they put together.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Bears at Eagles, the Black Friday game. That should be a good one.
Sure.
Packers at Bears on December 20th. That is I think that's the first Saturday game of the season. Again, we'll see where both teams are at, but it's a good NFC North rivalry.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have a lot of Bears primetime probably because they have Ben Johnson there now, and they want to see what that team's about, which could be bad if they're bad, right? So
that was they put the Jets on primetime with Aaron Rodgers for multiple games, 2 straight years.
It was horrific having to watch the Jets play every week.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a Jets fan.
Yeah.
It was terrible to watch. It ruined my primetime.
Yeah,
ruined it. 2 of the last games, another Saturday game, Eagles at Commanders. That should be a good one in December. And then the Christmas Day game that they already leaked out, Broncos at Chiefs.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm bullish on the Broncos, very bullish on the Broncos this year. So,
I mean, a lot to them to build off of with Bo Nix last year. So,
no doubt.
Improvements that they're making there. So, again, some notable schedules out. Obviously, we'll have the full schedule released today for each team. Some of those teams, again, have already kind of had some leaked by team reporters, nothing official by each team account. Maybe they'll do those, schedule release videos that we're also fond of, each individual team account kind of tweeting out different ways to announce their schedule, something to watch for. But we can use this now to transition to some best ball talk here, Howard. How that?
Absolutely. Well, again, bye weeks are going to be settled tonight. We'll know those for a fact. And then we can start drafting, which, of course, that's the best part. And here we go. I want to shout it out to our good friends over at FastDraft. You've probably heard us, Coop and I talking about it here on Alarm Fantasy Football. We talked about it also as well. We had Billy Muzio on the Fantasy Alarm Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio last Friday. And then this week, Matt Kelly from FastDraft is going to join us. But phenomenal game. I absolutely love it. And there are multiple games here. But basically what FastDraft is, there's 6-round drafts, 10-team leagues, 20-second clocks. Your draft is done in 5 minutes. Done. And I mean, literally you could sit there and just draft over and over again. I love the image here. First and foremost, that QR code right there at the bottom that you see on the screen.
Yep.
Zap that QR code, download the app, sign up using the promo code ALARM. You'll get an instant 50 deposit match, 100% deposit match up to $50. And then listen, the drafts are just $5 each. So that's 10 drafts right there. You automatically get matched on that first deposit.
Mm-hmm.
So again, promo code ALARM is your sign up there, and then jump in. They've got a couple of different games. Today, what we're going to focus on is the Origins game, because I love, I mean, everybody loves their rookies. Hey, does that QR code up here?
Yeah.
There you go. Look at that. Just sitting there right in the corner.
Right above.
Yeah. I'm just trying to reach up. I can't get to it. I can't. Oh, other hand. There you go. Look at that, peoples. Zap the QR code, sign up for FastDraft. I'm telling you, it's absolutely stunning. I was sitting there. I tweeted it out over the weekend. I was like sitting there on the couch watching playoff hockey and drafting teams. Now, you could just go in, and as you can see here, these are the screenshots that you're catching here for Origins, right?
Yep.
Origins is rookies only the rooks. So this is where it gets a little complicated, because you're going 6 rounds in there. And for anybody out there who's done a dynasty rookie draft already, you know what happens once you get a little further down the list. But in any event, you can enter the tournament just straight away. Turbo mode. For those of you who don't know what turbo mode is, or want to know what turbo mode is going to help bail you out as you get better and better with the app. It's a 20-second clock. And I'm telling you flat out, 20-second clock goes by just like that.
Yeah.
So if you go into turbo mode, you can set your pre-draft rankings, and it's, no positions are required here. Like, you're basically just flexing everybody, including
you could draft 6 quarterbacks if you wanted to.
Right? If you wanted to, yeah. And we'll talk about that strategy-wise for sure. But so just rank your top 60 of most importance. You don't have to worry about like roster construction or anything like that. This is literally your best player available. So rank your players 1 through 60. And when you go into turbo mode, you can just join all the drafts over and over again. And what that'll do is you'll auto pick right off of your pre-draft rankings. Mm-hmm. So you could zip through. Think about this. You deposit $50. You get a match for $50. It's $5 for a draft. Who doesn't love that, right? So that's 20 drafts right there. You can do it all through your rankings. You want to adjust your rankings at any point, you can adjust your rankings, but you could literally max out your drafts in turbo mode just based off of your early ranking. So it makes it super easy for you there. You can also go the traditional route there, but, nevertheless, so good.
Yeah, a lot to do here. Obviously, you see the scoring on the screen. You see the prize breakdown. $5,000 to first place there. They add boosters as well, so you basically assign boosted scoring to your positions there for each slot, so you can figure out again where you want players to have their increased scoring. Top lowest boosted scores are dropped each week. A whole bunch of cool things. 3rd round reversal, Howard. So you have that to your benefit if you're on the wheel. And like you said, you don't have to pick each position. You can, if you want to go heavy at one position, you certainly can, all based on the ADPs. If you go into their app, they have their top trending ADP movers, both risers and fallers. No surprise probably to anybody. Ashton Genty is your number 1 mover. He's your number 1 overall pick. They are moving 60 spots since their initial ADP rankings came out. Taking a look at those ADP risers and fallers, Howard, anything notable to you? Any key highlights? Again, a couple of guys, Genty, obviously Caleb Johnson, big time movers here.
I mean, Genty and Caleb Johnson, because they're worthwhile. Both are going to play this year. Both are going to be an active part of their offense. Ashton Genty is going to lead that backfield for the Raiders. And Chip Kelly is going to design that offense and scheme around Ashton Genty, right? Because Pete Carroll, we know the only thing he likes more than chomping on gum is running the football. So I'm pretty sure that Genty,
unless you're on the 1 yard line of the Super Bowl, and then he throws it.
Yeah. Well, John, come on, you got to zig when everybody else zags, right?
Sure do. Yeah, sure do.
So Genti is great. Caleb Johnson, I love him. He's going to replace Najee Harris in the Arthur Smith offense. So while yes, Jalen Warren will still rear his ugly head, as will probably Cordarrelle Patterson or some other nonsense there. Maybe they'll hand it off to the fourth string tight end a couple of times. But I still think Caleb Johnson, I mean, just the way he's built, 6'1", 225. Just an absolute bulldog, and he'll be the short yardage specialist. You'll see him at the goal line there. The three guys below, Taj Brooks, Dante Thornton, and Kyle Monangai. I'm probably mispronouncing his name in a massive way, but whatever.
It looks right. So
right. I'm just trying to sound it out, man. I'm using my vowels
phonics,
and my consonants. I think you're going to see a lot of movement from these guys, back and forth. I think you're going to see a lot of up and down. They're there right now, but as we move further into, and this is one of those reasons why, maybe you save a couple of drafts for a little later on when you start seeing whose role is developing how. But yeah, I mean, like Brooks, Thornton, and Monangai, they don't really move the needle for me that much right now. They have interesting paths towards touches, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'm more surprised by some of these, by some of the fallers, actually.
Sure. Obviously, Harold Fandon there falling, tight end. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback position. Maybe there's, again, some uncertainty around that. I mean, what's your take here on the fallers?
Well, it's kind of funny. I think he started dropping as soon as Twitter, fantasy football Twitter, started posting that picture, that video of him throwing an interception, one of his first passes.
Yeah.
At OTAs. I think for me, I said this before. I think Shedeur Sanders walks into the season as the starting quarterback for the Browns. I really do. I could see a way that that the Browns turn around. They're like, you know what? Let's just give this to Joe Flacco to get us started.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that with the way that Shedeur Sanders has apparently walked into camp, humbled a little bit by the draft and everything that went down there, because everything that I've read so far is that he's walked into camp with a totally different attitude.
Sure.
And I think that that's necessary, because now it's put up or shut up time. And if you are going to be a worthwhile quarterback in the NFL, you need to kind of start off in camp on the right foot. I just don't think Dylan Gabriel is an NFL quarterback. I think that he's a perfectly fine backup that you'll see floating around the NFL. But I mean, I don't really see much of a difference between like him and like a Kenny Pickett almost,
sure.
Just guys who are destined to be backups
on that roster. So,
So I don't mind him falling. Ilik Ayamanor, I think that was kind of an interesting drop, as well as Mason Taylor. But if you look at the ADP here for like Mason Taylor, I mean, 26, that's early third round.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he just dropped out of the back end of the second. I think Mason Taylor, out of this group of fallers, probably the guy who stands the best chance out of this group to see the most work, right? Because the Jets have been needing a tight end. Fannon's going to be behind David Njoku. Ollie Gordon, not really a strong path to touches. He's kind of buried on that depth chart. And then Ayamanor, who I love the talent, but if you look at what Brian Callahan's doing with Calvin Ridley and them signing Tyler Lockett, you want to get shorthanded veterans on the field with your rookie quarterback to help him along, as opposed to trying to develop a chemistry between two rookies to get your team motivated.
Sure. And like you said, Taylor's still obviously being drafted, dropping 7 spots out of the top half of the round there. Still going to be a third or fourth round pick in these drafts as a projected starting tight end, because there are very few starters as you kind of work your way through the ADP. So we'll take a look at that now. These are your top 12 in current ADP rankings. Obviously, Ashton Genty's number 1, Cam Ward number 2. Of this group, Howard, any surprises for you, or any values that you find? Maybe Travis Hunter at 6 is a potential appeal to you as a value play.
Well, the first thing that I want to kind of bring up here is the interesting absence of Tyler Shuck. Like, We expect him to be the starting quarterback. And while, obviously rookie QBs, you can't really rely on them. These are all rookies that we're dealing with here. And so the question is if a quarterback, and let's face facts, in fantasy, quarterbacks are the ones who move the needle the most. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who score the most points. So I'm surprised that we don't see Tyler Shuck in this, in this, just for this particular game. Because like you said earlier, John, you could draft 6 quarterbacks if you wanted to. I mean, you're not going to here in Origins, but Cam Ward, Tyler Shuck, either Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, probably right. Sanders. And then in the second half of the season, I expect to see Jackson Dart under center. Is it worthwhile to kind of draft those guys there? But that's just a strategy point here. Sure. Do you just say screw it and just give me all these quarterbacks? Kind of fill in the blanks.
We talked obviously scoring. Tyler shows in the next slide, I believe, if I remember correctly. So we'll get to him shortly. Obviously, Caleb Johnson's we saw was one of the biggest risers coming into the top 10. Ashton Genty's your top overall pick here. Thoughts on this wide receiver group? Again, McMillan's going 4, Hunter's at 6, and then you have a group at 10, 11, and 12. Golden, Higgins, and I'm not even going to pronounce that. It was Egbuka. Did I get that right?
Mika Egbuka. Yeah, I mean, so here's the funny thing. So, yeah, Tet McMillan, I mean, this guy has the chance to have a 25% target share for Carolina. You don't grab Tet McMillan with the 8th overall pick if you're expecting Xavier Legette or Jalen Coker to be developing further. So you've got Tet McMillan, and then you re-sign Adam Thielen as the security blanket. So I think Tet McMillan is in a great, great spot. I definitely do. I would actually even consider him over Amarian Hampton, but I would actually consider RJ Harvey over Amarian Hampton here as well. So I like Tet McMillan. I think Travis Hunter is going to have an opportunity right from the start as well. They're talking about limited defensive packages for him. So, he's in a great spot. Matthew Golden is likely to be, I mean, I don't know if they consider even Jaden Reed to be their top receiver. Mm-hmm. But I think that Matthew Golden, obviously he stands that opportunity to push aside guys like Christian Watson, guys like Romeo Doubs, drop Tavian Bricks, which is
can he push out Dontavian Wicks?
I'm really curious to see, because when I saw somebody refer to him as drop Tavian Bricks, that did it for me there. Sure. I will that is one compliment I will throw Reddit's way. So I think that is definitely a good spot to be. But yeah, I think that Golden can overtake any one of those 3 guys. Sure. So that it is really him and Jaden Reed being the top 2 receiving targets there. So could I see him kind of climbing up once we start seeing him more and more in camp? I could see him climbing up some, over some of these running backs for sure. Egbuka, you've got Evans, you've got Godwin. Is Godwin going to be healthy in camp? Is he going to be ready to start the season on time? That's the big question. But you also have Jalen McMillan there, who, maybe people are oblivious to what Jalen McMillan did at the tail end of the last season. But yeah. I think McMillan still, I think he loses value that they've drafted Egbuka, but I'm not going to rule him out at all, because man, he filled in so beautifully. He won people fantasy championships single-handedly. Egbuka is going to be fighting for targets. Yeah. So, do I consider him to be a top guy? I would rather see Trey Harris, over Emeka Egbuka here in the ADP. So, again, there you go. It's talking about, your value picks and whatnot. And then Jaden Higgins, I already said something about
Trey Harris is 13. So one behind. There's Jackson Dart at 14, Tyler Show at 18. Thoughts here on the group? A couple of tight ends, a couple of running backs, Cam Scatabo for the Giants up here in the top 20. Notables for you, Howard?
Oh, there are definite notables here. Listen, Trey Harris has definitely got the potential of pushing aside both Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston. No doubt about it. Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. I mean, I would actually consider those guys. I would probably think about taking those guys ahead of guys like Egbuka or even Jaden Higgins because they definitely have roles carved out. Ben Johnson told Colston Loveland at his pro day that he reminds him of Sam Laporta. You don't take a tight end when you're already paying Cole Kmet over $50 million.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take a tight end at 10 overall if you're not going to use him on the regular. So I think that the tight end position has been something that the Colts have been desperately in need of also. So I like those two guys there.
You find it interesting that Loveland's going just after Warren in that respects, or
I do find that kind of interesting. I think that that's again, Warren is the guy who he's the better player overall. Colston Loveland, I think, is the better pass catcher,
Sure.
but Tyler Warren's going to see the heavy snap share because he is also a good blocking tight end. I don't think Colston Loveland is as strong as a blocking tight end. And when Ben Johnson starts with his 2 tight end sets, well, then, Loveland's going to be the guy who's going to be released while Cole Kmet stays tethered to the inline. Who else? Scatabo is going to have himself a nice little, Opportunity to do some goal line work, some short yardage situations.
How do they mix him in with Tracy? Like, what's their?
Yeah, I think Tracy's the main guy, and I think Scatabo is going to be the complementary guy in there. I think if you wanted to look at it as a way to equate in NFL terms, it reminds me very much of the Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears,
Sure,
kind of tandem. Like that's similar skill sets for both guys there. So I think Scatabo is going to have some value. Shug's going to have some value. Tootin's an interesting one only because everybody's souring on Travis Etienne at this point. And, I mean, if Tank Bigsby hasn't outplayed Travis Etienne by now, does Tootin have that possibility? He's extremely fast. So, maybe they utilize him in a different way.
Sure.
I think that's
this being a rookie-only basketball draft, right? You get the running backs and hope that they have eventually the opportunity to be the top, involved running back or, in a timeshare of some level, for late season potential. So even if Tootin doesn't have the clear path immediately, something he could get and be a big value later on in the year.
Yeah. I mean, stash him, kind of, hope for the best sort of a situation. That's why I love the Origins game here, because to me, if I'm drafting, there are different strategies you can employ. Am I taking only guys who have that clear path to touches right now early? And then just kind of using those picks on, the late picks on the hopefuls, guys who are buried on depth charts right now. I think Luther Burden is buried on the depth chart here as well. He's behind DJ Moore. He's behind Romo Dunze. Who's the other guy? Why am I blanking on the dude's name? Who else is there?
Bears depth chart for you?
Bears depth chart for me, please.
Yeah, one sec. I'll grab it for you. They got him listed as 3rd, but maybe you're thinking of Zacchaeus.
Oh, no. Maybe it's not Zacchaeus. Maybe I was just thinking about the fact that Colston Loveland's going to command a strong target share.
I was going to say, I mean, obviously they had Keenan Allen last year, but not there this year. So
I like Kyle Williams. I think that he definitely has a clear path towards some targets.
Wide open wide receiver room after Stephon Diggs in New England. So
yeah, I mean, what are we relying on? Keishon Boutte?
Or people think maybe Jalen Polk figures it out this year. Who knows?
Jack Besh is an interesting one there in Vegas, because really once you get past Jacoby Myers, you got Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers are the target hogs in that offense. But where do you go after that? Do you go to Trey Tucker, or do you look to a guy like Jack Besh and hope that he blossoms? I think that's definitely worth a grab as well.
Yep. Again, as we get deeper into these drafts, some tougher, because this is rookie only. So now you're talking about guys that don't have paths or very minimal ability to score. You need a roster 4 a week. Shador Sanders is here. Jalen Milroe is here as quarterbacks. I mentioned obviously Mason Taylor In this range, maybe the top actual top player of guys that could see the field of this group.
Well, that's the thing. I think Jaden Blue has a good opportunity to work that Dallas backfield. Miles Sanders, no. Javonte Williams hasn't been able to, separate himself, coming off of Denver. Maybe the change of scenery helps him. But I think Jaden Blue has a clear path to touches. I think Mason Taylor has a clear path to touches. And I will look at, in drafts here, Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Milroe. Because here's the thing. I think if you're looking at Seattle's situation right now and you take a guy like Milroe, who is a mobile QB, you look at what Mike McDonald is doing there in Seattle, and the way he's got everything structured with Clint Kubiak and Rick Dennison, running that offense, he's really trying to build this in the mold of what he's used to with the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
All those years of working, doing the defensive work there, but watching what Harbaugh and Greg Roman built. And I think Jalen Milroe kind of gives them that possibility that if Sam Darnold goes in the tank or Sam Darnold struggles or anything like that, I think Milroe could be one of those guys. If Seattle falls out of it in any way, shape, or form, I think they try to turn it over to Jalen Milroe. I think Sam Darnold's kind of could be a one and done.
Yeah, I no arguments here. Again, we've only seen Darnold do it for 1 year, right? Now he's got to go learn a whole nother system and try to have the same success with maybe not the same talent around him. So I'm good with that. Anything else stand out to you here? Any names?
I love Dylan Sampson. It's going to be tough with him and Quinshon Judkins. I think that probably ends up being a little bit more of a committee situation, but that's a wait and see. It's a great bargain price to get him there at 30.
Again, it's going to only get worse from here. We're now into the
40s. All right, off of this list here, Elijah Arroyo, I think he pushes Noah Fant for touches. I've already said I do like Elik Ayamanor. Pat Bryant. I like Pat Bryant in Denver. And again, I'm a little bullish on the Broncos right now, but when Sean Payton turns around and he says things like, this guy really reminds me of Michael Thomas. And what they like about Michael Thomas, coming off of the, his time with the Saints, I think Pat Bryant could be a sneaky late round pick here.
Okay. Anything else?
Out of this group? No, not really.
Got 2 more slides here, Howard. Got to get down into that final.
We are deep.
Yeah. Dylan Gabriel's here. Again, Dylan Gabriel at 43. If you think that maybe he ends up grabbing it. You mentioned Hal Fannin dropping. He's down 46. Anything down here? Will Howard, again, technically Pittsburgh without a quarterback really at the moment. So
yeah, but I just don't know if Will Howard's going to be that guy. I do like Isaac Tesla, actually. I think that he does have that possibility because once you get beyond Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, then you're looking in what, like Khalif Raymond territory?
Is he the Josh Reynolds play this year? Or?
He could be the Josh Reynolds play this year. So I do
Patrick
like Tesla.
Play, the Tim Patrick play that almost won me $1 million on Thanksgiving had he just not got shoestring tackled.
So close.
Never know. Anything's possible. All right, next group. Again, getting deep. 60 players in. So Quinn Ewers, if you think that there's an injury to Tua, throw a dart on Quinn Ewers.
I guess. I mean, out of this crew here, who do I like? Well, Isaiah Bond hasn't signed with anybody yet, so I'd be interested to see if he does land somewhere. I think Ty Felton becomes an interesting guy if there's an injury to like a Jordan Addison or even a Justin Jefferson. I think that's interesting. Sure. Aronde Gadsden, I'd love to see him develop, right? I mean, good pedigree. His father, Aronde Gadsden Sr., a strong NFL player. The tight end situation for the Chargers, I'm actually bullish on Tyler Conklin. They brought him in. I think Will Dissly's more of like a, tether him to the line. Will Dissly strikes me more as like a Cole Kmet, whereas Tyler Conklin could profile a little bit better as a pass-catching Colston Loveland. I think if Aronde Gadsden, if there's an injury that happens, Gadsden could be somebody you could take a look at.
All right. And then last one here, Howard, again.
There's more? Oh my lordy, 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 lordy.
Any final darts, deep looks here, guys? Again, some of these guys getting 30%. Tez Johnson's 30% drafted in these leagues.
Yeah, this is a tough one here. This is definitely a tough one down here. I mean, yeah, I mean, once you're sitting there and you're in that top 60, so a guy like Tez Johnson or Jalen Lane, you could do that. I think Arian Smith, he could be the Jets, field stretcher. Could be the deep play there. Nothing spectacular, but if you look at it, it's Garrett Wilson, and they still have Alan Lazard sitting on staff. They don't really have a strong receiving core, so maybe Arian Smith kind of, pans out a little bit for us.
All right. Well, that is again the Origins draft here over on FastDraft. There's plenty of other contests over at FastDraft as well. So if maybe all rookies isn't your thing, they have the Flex 4 drafts. They have plenty of contests available. And like you said, the buy-ins for these are generally low, and you get the up to $50 deposit match. There's to give you some free entries just by signing up. FantasyAlarm.com/FastDraft, or you can scan that QR code right there. Use promo code ALARM when you make that deposit. And, could be doing some live drafts with you guys in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. So if you're not yet signed up at Fantasy Alarm, you can join that as well. 7-day free trial. QR code's right up there. You can scan that and get involved with us over at FastDraft Fantasy this season. We'll have plenty of more strategy articles coming out, contest breakdowns, and like I said, some opportunities to do some drafts with us here this offseason. So sign up, FantasyAlarm.com/FastDraft, promo code ALARM to get that 100% deposit match up to $50. Howard, that is it for today's Alarm Fantasy Football Show. Take a look at the NFL schedule release. Took a look at FastDraft Fantasy. Any parting takes for the Fantasy Alarm family who's tuned in here today?
No, just keep in tune with everything that we've got going on over at FantasyAlarm.com. I'm doing a top 5 at the skill positions series for articles and videos over there for redraft leagues. Coop's focusing on the dynasty and the best ball aspect of it. We do have our best ball cheat sheet, which is fully available to you. Oh, there you go, right there. You can either zap that QR code or go to FantasyAlarm.com/NFLBB25, NFL Best Ball 25. That is where you're going to want to go from for that aspect there. I'll tell you what, once the schedule comes out and I've got all the bye weeks, I'm going to set my my top 60 rankings for the turbocharge fast draft. Way to go. And then I'll just start announcing for everybody. So give me a follow on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. I'm going to start announcing when I'm jumping into a draft room, and you guys can just jump on in with me. So make it happen.
Make it happen indeed. Appreciate you all tuning in. Again, Alarm Fantasy Football back next week with Coop at the helm. But don't worry, you'll see plenty of me, Howard, and the rest of you guys getting you ready for this upcoming fantasy football season. Till then, everybody, we'll talk to you later.